It's a very good morning to you, everyone who is joining us here on this LinkedIn webinar that is being brought to you by First Capital Bank. My name is Farai Mwakutuya, and I'll be the moderator for this discussion that is focusing on Agritech in Zimbabwe, the theme being paving a way for a new era in farming. Now, just to let you know, this is the second such webinar that is being hosted by First Capital Bank. We had a previous one that was focusing on the agricultural value chain. And the reason why the bank is doing this is obviously to make sure, or to try and ensure that there is more productivity, more profitability in this mainstay sector of agriculture. The focus of today's program, I think, as I've said, is Agritech, which is very pertinent at this point in time because of the growing use of ICT in agriculture. Just some quick stats before we get into the actual discussion that I think will help us understand how important, how valuable, and how relevant this discussion is. According to some statistics that I got from Microsoft, who are very active in agritech in Africa, the agritech space grew by 44% year on year between 2016 and 2019. This continent is the fastest growing in terms of agri-tech services in the developing world. And over 300 million farmers will be reached by agri-tech services in the coming years. So clearly very important going forward, and already very relevant and important now. The focus of today's discussion, as I said, is to try and see how agri-tech can help farmers optimize their farming activities, work towards a collaborative approach in terms of investment, development, and policy to help it make it more affordable and accessible, and also share practice in modern farming methods. To help me unpack this discussion and to get into some of the key issues, I have a fantastic panel made up of people who are on the ground, who are involved directly with what we're talking about right here. Let me begin by introducing Engineer Love Kaseke. He is the Director of ICT in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water, and Rural Development. He's been in this position for the past 5 years. Prior to that, he worked for Liquid Telecoms, Tel1, and Infrastructure Development Bank of Zimbabwe in various positions. He's the holder of a master's degree in ICT management from Coventry University, a master's degree in intellectual property from Africa University, and a BSc honors degree in electrical engineering from the University of Zimbabwe. He's a certified information system security professional. He's also a member of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers. We'll be hearing from the engineer very shortly. Before that, let me introduce as well a lady who's been named by Forbes magazine as among the most influential women in Africa. Her name is Dr. Divine Simbin Kula. She's the founder and managing director of DDNS Security Operations, which is the holding company for Securico Security Services. Now, through her hard work and determination and focus, she has built the company to become one of the most respected and sought after players in the security industry in Zimbabwe, the region, and beyond. Through her leadership, Securico is employing over 4,000 people and has been certified as an ISO certified security company. Now, specific to agriculture, and like me, if you follow her on social media, you will have seen some of the very impressive livestock. So she's a very accomplished farmer in her own right. In agriculture, she founded Zikomborero Farms. It is an agricultural company involved in various activities, employing several people and intending to grow. And we'll be hearing from her in terms of how she's already making use of tech in her farming operations. Alongside her as a farmer as well as Graham Webb. He's a seasoned farmer. He's a managing director of Ash Fresh Farming. He studied agriculture, went to study agriculture abroad so he could gain a better understanding of the innovations required to keep up with global farming practices, and came back to Zimbabwe to start applying some of that knowledge that he had acquired. He has a wealth of experience in the tobacco, wheat, and maize farming, and now a lot of experience in the export markets. Jeremiah Msabayana is the Chief Executive Officer of JEDZ Holdings and Drone Solutions Zimbabwe. He's an electronic engineer by profession. He holds a BSc Honors Electronic Engineering degree from the National University of Science and Technology and an MPhil ENG pre-thesis majoring in the field of study of mobile communication systems from that same institutions. He has previously worked for Econet Wireless Zimbabwe and Ericsson, Sweden, before he decided to take the entrepreneurial route running businesses here in Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Namibia. Last, but by certainly no means least, I would like to introduce Mr. Mtemwa Oshokunze. He's a seasoned banker with over 15 years of experience in investment banking. He has worked in 4 continents, specializing in commercial and investment banking, equity research, derivatives, sales, investor relations, commodities, currency, and structured opportunities. He holds a master's in business administration degree from Imperial College of Sciences and Medicine in London, a master's degree in development of finance from the University of Cape Town, a bachelor's degree in economics from Adelaide University, and is a certified development of finance analyst with the Chartered Institute of Development Finance. He is also the commercial director of First Capital Bank, our proud hosts and sponsors of this event. That is the panel, and we'll be getting into the discussion very shortly. But before we do that, just to let you know that we'd love to hear from you, would love to engage with you. If you are joining us via LinkedIn, if you'd like to ask any questions, if you'd like to make any comments or contributions, please type those contributions, post those questions on the comment section below this live link. If you post them there, we'll be able to put them to the panelists and they'll be able to field them. So as the discussion is going on, please do feel free to post those comments, post your questions, and I'll be able to see them and shoot them to the appropriate person that you have asked them to. So please do feel free to engage with us. Would love to hear from you. Without taking up much more time, let us get into the discussion, into what we are here for. I would like to begin, of course, by bringing the discussion. I've spoken about how important ICT and technology are in agriculture in Africa, how they are seen as a driving force going forward. But we obviously want to localize this, to bring it home, to locate where ICT and what role technology plays in agriculture in Zimbabwe. And to do that, I would like to now hand over to a representative from the ministry, Engineer Lovemore Kaseke. If you could just give us an overview in terms of the use of technology in Zimbabwe. Is there policy, and where is it already being used, and going forward, what are the plans from a ministerial point of view?
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead, engineer. We would also love, we can hear you, we'd also love to see you. So if you could switch on your camera, that would be even better.
Okay. All right. I'm using my phone, so the picture might not be very good.
No, that's great. It's good enough. Go ahead, sir.
All right. In the military, we recently launched the Agritech National Blueprint for Zimbabwe, and we also launched the Continental Blueprint for the continent, for Africa. But from the beginning, let me start by defining what Agritech is. Agritech is the application of technologies to produce more with less, to make farming more profitable, more efficient. This starts from field monitoring right up to the monitoring the food supply chain. Right. Some have likened the Agritech revolution to the fourth agricultural revolution, much alike to the Industry 4.0. The World Summits, the World Government Summits, is categorized the Agritech into 3 major trends, which are: 1, technologies that produce differently using new techniques. These are technologies like hydroponics, bioplastics, desert agriculture, and things like that. The second category are technologies that bring food production to consumers while increasing efficiencies in the food chain. These are vertical farming, genetic modification, cultural meats, and 3D printing. The third category is technologies and applications that cross industries. These are drone technologies, the Internet of Things, data analytics, precision agriculture, and nanotechnologies, artificial intelligence, food sharing and crowd farming, and food chain technologies, and blockchain technologies, I mean. Let me define hydroponics. Hydroponics is a cultivation method that leaves soil behind in favor of mineral nutrients in a water-based solution. This provides alternative production capacity where production environment is very difficult. It is used mainly with vertical farming. Right. The impact of Agritech is that Agritech is having a huge impact upon the whole food supply chain using techniques such as the Internet of Things, blockchain technologies to improve the traceability of food in the value chain and to increase trust in the food that goes to the table. Let me move on to the next technology, which is robotics. Right, robotics is the branch of Agritech that can revolutionize the growing of food. It can be used to increase the sustainability of agriculture and address issues such as shortage of manual labor. Machine learning and Internet of Things. Now, machine learning and Internet of Things are at the heart of what is ahead in the agritech world. They will allow the robotics and sensors to keep track of soil quality and water levels to automate and make production more efficient. They can also link with the blockchain technologies to help food become more traceable and therefore reduce waste. Let me come to blockchain technologies. This has the potential to democratize the food and to enable better choice because it can enable the consumer to trace the origin of the food, to analyze its footprint and to its carbon footprint, and also when linked with the Internet of Things, it can be used to track data across the value chain. Now, what does the future hold for the agritech technologies in Zimbabwe? Right. As unsustainability stemming from the food being produced in ways that negatively impact an already delicate environment, and food waste further exacerbated the situation. This situation is a key problem facing the food industry. Agritech is the tool to produce more food while assuring that less food waste and increasing also the transparency through traceability of food that lands on our tables. Let me define food waste and where it happens. Food waste doesn't just happen at home. It happens right across the value chain, from even before the food hits the supermarket food supermarket shelves. This happens because there is a mismatch between the demand and supply of food, and food being supplied to where it is not demanded, and therefore reaching exhausting its shelf life before it's consumed.
I think we may be having a slight connectivity issue there with the engineer, but as soon as he's able to rejoin us, we will come back to him very quickly now. I think he obviously spelled out a definition, which I think is very important to actually find out what Agritech is, the different branches of Agritech, the types. And I think before we proceed, it might also be useful to those who are following us to find out some of the real life examples. So here in Zimbabwe, let me begin with you, Dr. Divine Kula. Perhaps you could give us a quick example of how you are actually, what types of tech you are applying on your farm.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. Obviously, as a farmer, Agritech has been widely used by some of us, though of course not to the level that we would wish to be using it. There is obviously need for us to use sophisticated technologies in today's farming for us to be more productive, more profitable, and hopefully being ecologically friendly to the environment. For us, my business is really in the livestock sector. We have used the systems like the GIS or the GIS software or GPS for us to map things like dams, things like our fields, so that we correctly locate where we are supposed to do certain activities or certain enterprises. Obviously, drones are very key for a livestock farmer like myself, because we utilize in close to 3,000 hectares of land, of grazing land. Yes, for us to be efficient, we definitely need technologies like the drones for us to be able to locate where our livestock is, to ensure that the fences are still intact, and obviously, you know, to lessen the thefts that obviously do happen on farms all the time. And locating even the sick animals has been helped a lot by the drones, thereby obviously helping a sick animal that might eventually have to die if it is not located in good time. We have also used the Agritech technology in what is called the livestock group. We use the software called the breed plan. Breed plan is a livestock that gives better productivity in terms of identifying cows that can give better genetic reproductive performance. We have used that quite a lot because there is what they call EBV, estimated breeding evaluation. You actually get that from a software program, this program called the breed plan, and that has helped us to maximize our productivity in terms of our breeding. We have also used the Agritech. I think artificial insemination is one way, certainly, that we have used Agritech, because we are currently, as a business, we are currently wanting to scale up our dairy enterprise. So the best or the most efficient, or rather the cheapest way to implement that was for us to inseminate our beef cattle with dairy bull semen. And that is an exercise that is currently going at our farm right now, because for us to buy dairy cows in the numbers that we want would not be possible, because obviously we will need to expend quite a huge capital outlay. So yes, that is part of what we have used. Traceability in livestock. I'm sure we all know about the livestock identification trust that was implemented some years ago in terms of helping tracking animal movements, which are tagged with the unique tagging system. Initially, the bigger picture was to ensure that we could be benefiting a lot more from the global markets. The EU, when we exporting beef to the EU, it was one of the requirements, the global requirement, that all export beef had to be traced to the source. And this livestock identification trust or the traceability scheme, certainly some of us embarked on it a few years ago. We are still on it, though of course the bigger picture of exporting is not happening at this stage because of the reasons that most of us are aware of. So yes, certainly that has helped in terms of even our own identification systems as farmers. And I think for most farmers, we are aware that one of the things that we grapple with is market access. Most farmers certainly toil and produce, but at the end of the day, they get very limited value of their products because of lack of market information. So there is a digital tool called Incambo. I think some of us know about it. It handles almost 70% of agriculture commodities, especially from the smallholder sector, who have been really getting the raw end of the stick in terms of marketing their produce. So the solution links a lot of people in the value chain, from the farmers to the transporters, to the market itself, to traders, to policymakers through that digital channel that they use. And the farmers can actually now be able to sort of know the price of the enable to price their commodities on the farm and be able to make decisions, which was not happening before. So certainly Agritech has helped the farmers in that regard. So for us as farmers, Agritech is critically important because there's no way we could efficiently run the operations that we run without being involved to very large extents with Agritech.
Thank you so much for that. Let's quickly hear from Graham. I mean, you are also applying and making use of technology in your operations. Could you also briefly give us an overview of what that entails, what it is exactly you're doing?
Sure, and good morning to everybody and everybody who's hopefully joined us online. Technology is so important in farming, and I think traditionally a lot of farmers have been very wary of technology because most people assume technology with a big fat dollar sign next to it. But technology falls down to two things. One is efficiency, and two is sustainability. And those are two very important things for farmers to progress. And efficiency, I think, is a key word. On a lot of my travels pre-putting in our program, where we've started a program of putting in avocados and citrus, I did a lot of traveling down south looking at various systems, etc., especially irrigation systems and things like that. And I was actually quite alarmed about how far we had fallen behind in terms of technology, specifically to do with irrigation. But it was very refreshing. We partnered up with a company called Netafim, which is Israeli-based, but are huge in South Africa, and together with our local partners here in Zim, which is Waterright. We did a lot of investigating, a lot of going around, looking at different farms, which I think is very important to get an overview of the different forms of technology that are out there. And we put in a system which I believe was the first in Zim, partnering with what we saw, and we sort of designed things around how we wanted them to implement and would suit us here best. So technology is just so important, and it's certainly something that I would advise all farmers to really embrace and get online. When I just use the term efficiency, we have our pump room that is set up that does at the moment 125 hectares of avocados and 80 hectares of citrus. I alone run that pump house with one assistant. That's all you need. And in terms of efficiency, those decisions are made by me, top management. And so the buck stops to me. So you're relying less on mistakes to be made, because there's less change of command where mistakes can be made. And it's all to do with technology and efficiency again. Like we have probes, probably about 16 to 18 different probes that are around the land in different blocks, specifically done to soil type, that give us water, that give us readings of moisture down to 80 centimeters every 10 centimeters. All that information, like everything these days, is an app, and it comes onto your phone. So you can immediately have that, you've got that information at your fingertips. So you're making decisions based on technology, but you're making the decisions there and then, very, very fast. So you can react to certain situations. I.e., when you look at forecasting the weather, and you can see what the weather's going to be. So we rely on a thing called the ETO, which is basically is your evapotranspiration of the plant, which is basically the water loss within the plant in a given day. So the water will naturally lose. So obviously, when it's very, very hot, the water will the plant will use more, and at specific times in the plant's life. You have to be able to react, i.e. when it's flowering, i.e. also, again, when it comes into fruit and fruit set. These are, again, very, very important times. And having that technology at your fingertips allows you to make those decisions very, very quickly. So you're able to react. One of the other things that we do have in place is a weather station, which is, again, very, very important, because that gives us a lot of information. And again, it's all on an app. So I think it falls down to efficiency and being able to react and make those decisions very, very quickly. But again, and I'll say it again, a lot of farmers view technology with some trepidation, I think. But I would certainly encourage everybody to embrace it. And along with and I think maybe that's one of the things why hopefully I believe First Capital were why we partnered with First Capital, because being a sort of young bank and seeing where they were going, and I think they liked the path where we were going, and for us it was a natural match. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to embrace technology. It's so important. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Graham, for that very, very good insights there. When you began, I think you said that unfortunately a lot of the time people associate technology with a big fat dollar sign, and just talking about dollar signs now brings us to our next speaker, none other than the commercial director of First Capital Bank, Mr. Mthemwa Oshokunze. Perhaps you could, I heard Graham just make reference there to the fact that there seems to be a relationship of some sort between his operations and yours that was founded on this shared vision of technology and the value of tech in agriculture. So Mthemwa, if you could perhaps highlight to us how the bank intends to contribute towards development of Agritech and also the opportunities that are available for farmers who haven't already taken it up.
Thanks, Farai, and hello to all the other panelists. Thank you for supporting us in this informative exercise where we can share our experiences and our stories with the LinkedIn community, whether they're local or international. It's very important to provide this kind of evidence to the market. As a bank, what we've come to understand is that the world continues to innovate, and there's a conscious focus on improving sustainable development outcomes or goals. And we as a large commercial institution have to be part of that story. In Zimbabwe, as some of these examples have told us, Agtech or Agritech addresses some critical issues in our economy across the value chain, while also helping to fill some critical market gaps. For me personally, I always find myself challenged when I'm driving along our highways and I see a lot of fresh produce, on the side of the road, which, maybe requires better sustainable infrastructure, maybe requires better markets, maybe requires cold chain. And so we've all got to work together to find these answers. But critically, when we're looking at these things, we're trying to understand some key variables. How do you solve for productivity? How do you solve for climate risk? How do you solve for inefficient supply chains? And this has been mentioned. Graham has mentioned it. The doctor's mentioned it. The engineer, Mr. Kaseke, has mentioned it. And all of these answers contribute to a better understanding of the capital allocation process, in the agricultural space. And that then speaks to cash flows. It's a context. It's the context of these sort of understandings which enable better access to finance, especially in the formal sector. And so, if you can get these answers, and if you speak to any farmer, they're talking about, their goal is scalability, and whether that's, whatever ratio you use, whether it's hectarage or yield or whatever it is, it has to translate into a more sustainable P&L. And ag tech is now increasingly, perhaps in developed markets, becoming the core of that conversation. And so if we start to introduce that into our local market, ultimately it leads to better access to finance because you can explain the context of your project and how you want it to grow. So, I take great confidence when I am looking at, because, you have to think of a bank as an investor in your project. We say it's a loan, and sometimes a loan gets lost in context, right? I'm investing in your project, and I need to know that I'm going to get a reasonable rate of return or risk-adjusted return. And so if you now start to overlay what you're doing with the help of, whether it's livestock, whether it's crops, with the help of technology, I then have a better understanding of what you're trying to do and the likely success of your project, and therefore my ability to give you that funding, within a risk narrative. So currently, what we've been doing at the moment, a lot of what we've done, is focused on commercial farmers, CapEx funding, working capital funding. We're currently working on redesigning our asset finance model to make asset finance a lot quicker and a lot more flexible. It's something that is missing from our market, and we should be able to allow our clients to come to us to say, look, if you help me put the technology in, it's going to improve my outcomes in terms of being able to fund the loan, and critically, it allows us, because as we all know, Zimbabwean banking is very concentrated. We're all going after the big clients. If you use tech, it gives me greater confidence to move down the value chain. It strengthens your own track record, which is something we always look at. It gives your off-taker a bit more confidence, and it significantly de-risks the funding of the project. But critically, it also gives me sight into your processes, your infrastructure, and how you're using technology to drive your own strategy. And we've come across so many interesting things. We in the middle of the year, we funded a fantastic 90-day cycle cattle fattening scheme, which uses a lot of the things that the doctor spoke about. And it's impressive. You're giving a person funding for 90 days, and I'm funding the purchase of your cattle, right? And I know that you're going to deliver a 36% return no matter what, because you have everything in place. We've been working with an irrigation company that will be looking to track its center pivots and the activity and the distribution and the efficiency of its center pivots. Graham has explained that we're doing some fantastic things with him, and one of the critical things that got us over the line is this irrigation infrastructure that he has in place, which we found as the most incredible thing on earth, because it creates so much efficiency in terms of how his operations run. And the last example I'll give is an interesting company that's currently rolling out blueberries with a target of going up to 20 hectares of blueberries. And as we all know, blueberries it's become the buzzword in terms of call it your horticulture or seed fruit or whatever it is. Because of COVID, everybody's looking for health products. We all want to put blueberries in our porridge. But these guys have worked with some foreign partners on a germ or a seed where the ripening process is materially slowed down, which allows them to actually ship as opposed to air freight the blueberries to Europe. And that's really important because Western markets right now are talking about carbon footprint, and they don't want vegetables or fruits coming in by plane. And if they can get it right and lock that space up by being able to put your blueberry supply on boats and it ripens when it gets to market, I mean it's game over for a lot of people. It means more market share for Zimbabwe and for Zimbabwean farmers. So these are the things that really get us excited. And I think the last thing that I'll mention is, we've engaged a lot of external parties. Recently, we hosted a bunch of Irish agricultural experts operating through the Africa Agri-Food Development Program and another organization called Sustainable Food Systems, both based out of Ireland. And it was a knowledge sharing session where they're now talking about, look, there's some really interesting things that we're doing in Ireland. We've been partnering with countries like Nigeria and Ghana. Maybe we can bring these conversations to Zimbabwe. And it's from sweet potatoes to groundnuts. These are crops that we're familiar with, and ultimately it can improve production and improve yield. So there are lots of variables, or there are lots of places for us to play within the value chain as a financial institution. But the critical thing is to try and capture that context. And on the back of that context, the bank then becomes excited to participate, because it solves our goal of profitability, and we all want to be profitable, and the farmer wants to be profitable. But two, I think everybody on this call or people listening all have a developmental agenda, and we allow markets to grow, which is really the important thing. You're improving the quality of living and the standards of life for Zimbabwean people, and that's real growth for us.
Thank you so much, Mutemo. I think amazing things that you spoke about there. Some of those examples, really amazing and eye-opening and insightful. Very exciting times ahead, and we'll come back and I think talk a bit more about some of the things that you raised there. But I quickly want to bring in our final panelist who I think obviously from the introduction we gave and the company that you run, which is Drone Solutions Zimbabwe, is engaged with these drones that, I think are very exciting to people when we see them flying around and buzzing around. But Jeremiah Msaban, if I could just ask you now to tell us, practically, how are these drones being used? Are they being used, and how does a drone actually help in terms of a farming operation and making it more efficient?
Thank you very much, Farai. And to all the previous panelists, very interesting discussion, and for the bank that is driving this. One of the biggest limitations of human beings is what we can see. Why? Because there is a lot of information, or rather light, that flies in front of us, but that is invisible to our eyes. For example, we can't see infrared when we operate. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If I could just ask the engineer Kaseke, if you could just mute your microphone, please. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Okay, thank you. So, for example, we can't see infrared when operating a TV using a remote. The light we can see is human beings, which of course is made up of the individual colors of the rainbow. It represents a very small portion of the available light. I'm sure Engineer Kaseke will speak to the electromagnetic spectrum. I don't want to get into too much detail there, which means to say what we can see with our biological eyes as human beings is only 0.0035%, to be specific, of the available light or information that crosses our eyes. So now it then opens up an opportunity for a technology that can come with the light or eyes that can see this bigger chunk of light that, as limited as we are as human beings, we can't see. And the invention of drones, it was the intention that this area be addressed as well, especially when it comes to agriculture. Among the area of vehicles, which we term drones, are now coming with eyes or sensors that are now accessing this information, which as human beings with our visual eyes, we are limited. And this information that ordinarily is not available to us human beings biologically, it carries a lot of intelligence that can really, when applied, it transforms the way we do things. And in agriculture, there's a very, very big application area, especially when you're looking at crop health monitoring and analysis. So just to make our listeners and panelists understand more, drones are coming in different forms and shapes to address different applications, even in agriculture. You'll find that basically a drone is a flying camera. And the type of cameras that they carry are the ones that then addresses the type of information that we might want to capture to make our farming, our agricultural cycle of production easier and cost-effective. So of course, we have got drones that carry visual eyes or visual cameras that see what we can see as human beings. And you also then have those that carry special sensors that then see these other colors or light that we are not blessed with as human beings. And that's where there is a very interesting intelligence there that has become a game changer with regards to how we deal with agriculture processes. As an example, if one is to walk out in the field as a farmer, when you see a green leaf, it tells us it is healthy, that is the crop. And when we see one that is brown or yellow, our conclusion is that health-wise, it is not in order. It may be suffering from moisture loss or nutrients and so forth. But what happens in between? Because by the time that the crop or leaves turn brown or yellow, it doesn't mean that that's the time when the suffering or the attack happened. It means there's still a window whereby you can still walk through your field and you see the crop looking healthy using our visual eyes, but already they are suffering. They are already yellow and brownish inside. This insight now to gather that intelligence and being able to pick that lack of moisture or food for your crop before we can see that using our visual eyes. That's a big space that drones are coming in, because it therefore means that you can respond faster to issues that you then need to address. Of course, the benefits of drones, coming to your question now, the benefits of drones in agriculture are becoming more apparent to farmers. As my previous panelists who are in the agriculture space have advised, already they're engaged in a number of technologies that are assisting in ensuring that the efficiency is increased. And drones are also coming in to enhance that process. So the range of applications for drones in agriculture, it ranges from mapping to scouting or surveying, spraying. And when it comes to livestock, as advised by Dr. Divine, there's a lot of applications there whereby drones are now used to monitor your livestock. We are working with a livestock farmer in Matebeleland, whereby they want us to be able to monitor, to count, and doing all sorts of things on their livestock. They've got a herd of more than 8,000 cattle. They've got buffaloes and so forth. And they want to be able to separate and being able to count using drones. It speaks to the application layer that is the Zimbabwean farmers are beginning to get into, which we believe is going to result in a significant reduction in the costs that are applied in the production side. We also have quite a number of farmers who are utilizing drones for doing all sorts of things. For example, we have been engaged in proposals with a client with citrus fruit. They want yield estimation because they've got vast tracts of land. And to use manual methods, it has proven to be very unreliable, resulting in erroneous counting and also it being very costly. And already there is the engagement to try and utilize drones to count oranges, to count macadamia, using, of course, the artificial intelligence platforms that are now available. Yield estimations is also a very big area, whereby for prediction analysis, drones have made it very, very easy. We are working with one seed producer in the country, and we are trying to explore how we can work on yield estimations using the very latest advanced technologies, utilizing drones and so forth. So basically, the key areas that are addressed by drones when it comes to agriculture, it is number one, you are looking at your cost saving. Because at the end of the day, you want to manage as a farmer the bottom line. You are looking at enhanced efficiency. Imagine a drone can fly so many hectares in a few hours or in a few minutes. And after processing the data for a short time, now you can go back to the field and do corrections using algorithms that have been put in place already. So efficiency is enhanced significantly. And definitely you then expect the profitability of the venture to increase. And also the ability to collect and analyze this data in real time. It has got a tangible outcome for farmers, such as better yield, crop yield, fewer resources expended on chemicals, on herbicides, and so forth, and definitely the overall improvement in management decisions. But definitely, in as much as this technology is very exciting and it is the game changer, and that's where we are going. Of course, there's still some issues that our farmers are still facing. We'll be happy to hear from the farmers themselves the challenges that they could be facing in trying to access some of these technologies so that as solution providers, we can then find a space to try and assist. As I come to the closure of this summary, high-level summary, it is very interesting for us to know, and I'm happy that we've got a representative from the Ministry of Agriculture. Drone business, engagement of drones is a very big investment area when we look at the benefits to the country, to the extent that even as a government, there is really need to be a very big focus in how we can tap into the application of drones. Currently, globally, as we get to the close of 2021, it is projected that the drone market would have surpassed US $12 billion. And for agriculture alone, it is projected to exceed USD $1 billion, which is, there's a lot of investment into this space because the benefits are serious. They are really serious benefits in utilizing drones. So already in Zimbabwe,
Mr. Msabayana, if I could come in there, you've just raised some key issues. I want to come back very quickly to Engineer Kaseke. I will come back to you. I like the point where you said there are still some issues, and I would imagine as a layman that the cost, accessibility from a cost point of view is one of them. Let me come back to Engineer Kaseke, who is now back on the call. What is the policy? Is there a plan from a government point of view to make this technology more accessible? I mean, some of the fantastic solutions we've just been hearing from, Mr. Msabayana and the other panelists seem to be very high level, very, targeted to farmers with big herds, large tracts of land and things like that. How do we make it more accessible to someone who's a medium scale farmer who still requires technology and those sort of solutions? So I'm basically asking, is there a plan to make it more affordable?
All right. Drones come in various sizes. Some are very small and very cheap. Some are quite big and a bit more expensive. But with the companies like Mr. Msabayana's company, anyone can lease a drone from his company and use it in his field and analyze data. If he, at the moment, the government has invested in a high performance computer center. So if data is collected on a large scale and it can be passed through a data analytics engine, and intelligent information drawn from it. But these people don't have to buy equipment. All they need to do is lease for a while, for a day. I want you to spray my field for quelea beds in Mrambinda, and Mr. Msabayana will take his drone and spray and bring it back. So accessibility is increased by the ability of people to access the drones, even if they don't have to buy the drones themselves, but by leasing them from companies that own the drones. But the policy for controlling introduction of drone technology into the country is through the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe. They are the authority that controls the flying space, the area of space of the country, so to speak. Thank you, sir.
Beyond just drones, some of the other technologies that you made reference to, is there again, because I think accessibility from a cost point of view, which you've spoken about, is great, but I think information and awareness that these things actually exist. Can we see going forward mainstreaming of Agritech, the way we've seen, government really make a big push for Vudza, for instance, really going out there, popularizing it, encouraging it? Is there a plan to do the same with technology?
Yes. Like I said in the beginning, we launched the Zimbabwe Agritech strategic blueprint just I think about 2 weeks ago. And we also launched the Africa Regional Agritech Blueprint on the same event. These blueprints were developed with the assistance of Smart Africa, and Zimbabwe was tasked to lead the continent in terms of Agritech. Hence, we developed a blueprint for the country and a blueprint for the continent. If you get access to the blueprints, they clearly specify the way forward for the country is that we first of all, we are going to do showcasing. We are going to have farms in every region where we are going to employ extensively these technologies and showcase them to people so that we generate interest. And then we are going to use our own engineers, technicians to help those farmers that want to buy or want to implement the technologies. And there are some development partners we have offered to help us in this endeavor.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in, okay. Do you want to add a bit more, engineer, before I go to the next panelist?
No, it's fine, sir.
Okay, Dr. Kula, when you were talking about some of the things that you were doing, you mentioned innovations like Imkambo, amongst others, which are really being used by even very small-scale farmers. Now, is there a way, in line with this whole theme of making it more affordable, more accessible, is there a way, from your own experience, to make some of these other higher-level technologies even more accessible to those small-scale farmers? So you use drones, for instance. Would you be able perhaps to partner or work with a group of other communal or small-scale farmers who are around you to extend some of your infrastructure and equipment to be able to assist them?
Thank you, Farai. I think the question of accessibility to the majority is really your question. I think first and foremost, it's important for awareness because the agriculture is now become knowledge intensive. So the need for farmers out there to understand what benefits they can derive out of embarking on technologies is very important. So there's need for all stakeholders, in particular our policymakers, to ensure that as much as possible, they disseminate this information. The ministry is saying they now have a policy or a blueprint that talks to that. So in my view, they should really ensure that that particular blueprint is just not for a few people that might have just watched the news when it was launched. I remember that is all I can remember about it. So the most important thing is for government and the Ministry of Agriculture to go out there, right down to the farmer in Muzarabani or in Cholocho, and explain what this blueprint is about, what it will benefit them at that household level, not just at the national level, but at household level. I'm sure we know what is now happening. Everyone is really on WhatsApp. Well, the majority of people, even a lot of all the people there in the rural areas now are got Android phones. Well, some of them don't, but surely there are several platforms that they can use to raise awareness in terms of Agritech, the radio, the extension workers, and so on and so forth. But I think the costs associated to this is what then prohibits. So that is where the development partners would need to come in. Development partners, they've got an affinity to work and support smallholder farmers, people out there in the remotest of places. So if government and such partners, development partners, can work together, I think we can have agri-technologies getting to everyone in Zimbabwe in no time, because that is the only way this world is going. If we are not really tech savvy, even at the lowest level, you will not go far. So government has got a critical role to play, and we hope this blueprint is really going to be a living a blueprint, not just a credenza blueprint.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. And I like, again, that last point where we need to move from planning to action at the end of the day. Let's do. as you farmers like to do indeed. Graham, let me come to you. One of the questions that I did put here in terms of preparations was, and I think you addressed it when you spoke about some of the solutions you got from an Israeli partner or companies. You know, obviously one of the biggest issues that is affecting agriculture in Zimbabwe in particular, but Africa as a whole, is climate change. So the role that technology will play in climate proofing our agriculture. And I suppose to the point that Dr. Kula and we've all been making is that, you know, the cost of it, does the cost, when you do the cost benefit, does the cost, you know, match or, you know, the possible consequences of not investing in this from a climate change perspective?
Thank you. Yeah, I think climate change is very real. I think it's something that we are definitely going to have to deal with, certainly in our future. I mean, I've certainly seen a shift in the seasons. You know, we just look at last year. You know, I know it was a La Nina, and we had a very heavy year of rainfall, which is good because that filled dams, but it was unseasonal, and again we projected for the same sort of thing. But you know, to what extent does technology play a part in that? And so, am I able to influence that? No, I'm not able to influence that. That's done by policymakers, and unfortunately, it affects the real people on the ground, which is us, which is the farmers. But when you talk about technology, you know, and again, I'll go back to this word efficiency, and I certainly can't, but I do echo the sentiments of the previous speaker, doctor, who was saying about government policy, and I can't really say about government policy, but I can certainly more say about what I've experienced in the private sector. Technology does come at a cost, yes, but it does improve your efficiency, basically, in a sentence, I think. So I think it's important that you partner with the right people. I think Zimbabwe has a wealth of people out there. I mean, I just go to one of our former speakers about the drone technology. You know, this is something that I didn't even know that was in Zim. You know, I've seen a lot of it in South Africa, and especially when it comes to yield mapping and things like that of citrus orchards and other orchards. It's become a vital link, and certainly something that you know, your markets want to see, because they want to be able to, you know, really predict what you're going to be selling at the end of the season, and to crop health and all sorts of things. So I'm very glad to see that we've got those, you know, that sort of technology in Zimbabwe. And you know what it is here. It is. I promise you, we have an amazing agricultural thing behind us. Is that me? Sorry, it might be. It might just be my connection.
Graham, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Sorry, it might just be my my connection. Sorry, out on the farm we're on VSAT. Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know whether you heard what I said previously.
No, I think we lost you when you were saying that, you know, there were some of these things that like yield mapping, which you had seen in South Africa, but weren't aware that it's actually available here in Zimbabwe and it's being done here. We're using drones.
Okay, sorry. You know, I just wanted to say that these things are here in Zim, and it's creating the right partnerships with the right sort of people. You know, the technology to do with irrigation, it's here in Zimbabwe. You know, we have such wonderful companies that do have this technology now. I think, you know, we can compete with anywhere else in the world because these technologies are here in Zimbabwe.
Indeed. Mutemwa, when you were speaking earlier, you said that obviously, you know, the use of technology allows smaller scale farmers to be more bankable, to be more attractive, to get funding from institutions such as yourselves? Because I imagine it brings that level of accountability. If I'm using technology and I actually say I've got 50 herds of cattle, I've dipped them, this is where they are, from wherever you're sitting, you can actually just look at the application and see that indeed I have the number of livestock I claim I have. They are on the farm. They've been dipped when they're meant to. So obviously this is perfect for you or not perfect, but it gives more comfort to funders. Do you plan to encourage it, or how do you plan to encourage your customers or people who approach you to say, look, go the technology way, let's see what solutions work for you so that you can be more bankable to us?
It's such an enabling factor, right? You know, you use the example of 50 cattle, you know, if you move away slightly from the traditional sense of banking, and you say to a person, I don't have to take your house as security.
Did you manage to get hold of?
I will take your cattle as security, on the basis that I am able to track that you are doing the right thing with those cattle, by using some of these solutions, then it gives me greater confidence that at the end of your cycle, and when you take your cattle to the doctor's abattoir, when she has one or whatever it is, you know I'm going to get my money back, and I know that my shareholders are going to be happy, and I've generated, you know, some interest income. So you know, we just have to factor that into the conversation, you know, whether it's horticulture, whether it's cereals, whether it's large crops. If I have greater line of sight, because typically, you know, I'm looking at taking some form of security, and I need to ensure that there's some level of insurance, right? We have to start thinking, if we're going to grow, we have to start thinking about more creative, but at the same time, more secure ways of funding. All right, and technology allows us to bridge that gap, and that is critical if our agricultural space is going to grow. So it's so important, you know. The power of the drone, the power of sight, is such a powerful analogy when we think about this stuff, because as a financial institution, you know, I need to know that my balance sheet is safe, and if someone can close that gap for me. And importantly, the issuers or those who are raising funding are willing to buy into the same narrative, then I would argue that we can all get along and we can all grow.
Fantastic. Jeremiah Msabana, we heard from the engineer earlier that there is, you know, a blueprint that has been developed for Zimbabwe and indeed the African continent. Your thoughts in terms of the implementation of that? How practical, how realistic will it be to roll out, given some of the challenges that we've identified in terms of cost, in terms of awareness, and getting people to adapt and come on board with some of these things?
No, thank you very much, Farai. And I'm actually glad that the government is taking a proactive steps to deal with these issues, whereby we want to address accessibility and affordability of these technologies. And I think one way that would assume that is also taken care of in the blueprint, definitely I've been interested to have a sight of that document, is that some of these technologies we can only also try to lower the cost to the small farmer down there in Mzarabani by also trying to localize a part of the production, so that at least the duties, cost, and so forth could be lowered. And as a business, we have already taken steps to try and assist in that area, whereby we are actually finalizing our discussions with some of the biggest manufacturers of these drones to to start setting up a plant in Zimbabwe. So everything being equal, we expect by the end of the first quarter of 2022 to be having a local plant whereby we could be having local assembly and a customization of cost-effective drones, especially for crop spraying drones, and also drones with a multispectral sensors for agriculture and other areas locally here in Zimbabwe. So with the support of the government, especially with the public and private partnerships, if some of these initiatives can be fully supported by the government, it can then make it very easy for us to then be able to address this. For example, we're actually looking for a farm very close to Harare. We're looking for a farm for at least 25 to 50 hectares because we want to set up a drone farm. So that drone farm will deal with so many other issues to do with the research, working with partners to research on the vegetative status of our crops here in Zimbabwe, and also training and all those things. So with the support of the government, working with the private, I see, hoping that I see addressed in that blueprint, I see that I think that should be quite easy for us to start on somewhere. And the uptake, in Zimbabwe, the literacy rate is very high. So naturally, you find that the adoption rate of this technology, I think, is expected to rise significantly.
Some very direct questions coming through from people who are watching this webinar. We do encourage you to, if you have any questions or contributions, please do post them on the comment section of this live link. Please do that, and we welcome them, we encourage them. Some of them you've just spoken to now, Jeremiah. There was, someone who was watching said, can farmers access training in the use of new technologies? What more can be done to ensure that training reaches farmers in remote areas? We spoke about Mzarabani, which is great. And perhaps that's, I was going to ask you, you are looking for a farm close to Harare, perhaps you should go as far as possible in terms of getting the farm, looking for a farm in terms of location. But another person watching says, what are the minimum costs for using drones for a farming project? I would imagine that depends on application, what it is that you wanted to do. But I think the question here is just how affordable is it, or how expensive is it? An idea.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think just to summarize the requirements that a number of users might have missed when it comes to the usage of drones. There's the purchasing or hiring of the equipment. There is also the regularization of the process, or rather the drone operationalization. According to the SI 271 of 2018, being managed by the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe, there are issues to do with who can fly a drone and which company or organization can operate or use these drones in their private capacity, corporate, or as a commercial, which are other areas that we're actually in discussions with the Civil Aviation Authority. So you would find that the training has got two aspects. The license training, because according to the regulations, for one to operate a drone, whether in a private or commercial application, one needs to hold a license issued by the Civil Aviation Authority of Zimbabwe. We happen to be running currently the only licensed drone training school in the country, Drone Solutions Academy. So we have been trying to reduce the cost for farmers. We actually have got some packages that we want to work with the farmers. So we have been working on engaging the bodies and the secretariats that superintend over all farmers in the country. We've got very exciting packages that we think will be very cost effective for them. So that's specifically customized. Then when it comes to the drones themselves, like what Engineer Kaseke highlighted, there are areas that might be a bit small to the extent that investing in drone infrastructure, that investment, it may not be as effective because the area could be too small for the cost to be spread. So the hiring option could be something to be considered. What others are trying to do is a number of farmers can work together join, work together as a team, not maybe 5, 10, 15, and have a company that they can hire to fly over. It's cheaper because you find that maybe flying 2 hectares and also flying 20 hectares, the cost may be same because the mobilization costs will be fixed and it could be the biggest cost. So sharing costs by working together so that by farmers combining and then have a bigger hectarage, you can then have any company coming to fly over, and each individual farmer can still have his or her own compartment boundaries marked out, but flying is done once. So it's one way of reducing these costs. So there are many other initiatives that I think the farmers themselves, farmers are very creative. They always come up with great ideas. So we believe that by the engagement between the farmers, the technology providers and so forth, we will then be able to align and come up with a position whereby we can make some of these services, how we can make them cheaper and so forth. Otherwise, coming up with exact figures, it may be difficult, but otherwise, I think a proper drone, which may not be complicated, for basic visual photogrammetry. I mean, you can get a drone for $800, and they can go as far as more than $1 million, depending on application and the time that you want it in the space, and also the type of sensors that you want. We need to understand that the most expensive part of a drone is not the drone itself infrastructure. It is the sensor that it carries, or in the proper terminology, what is called the payload. That's where the cost is. So others can do a phased approach and so forth, but I'm sure outside this platform, for more detailed information, we can always work out the possibilities that can be taken care of, like what other markets outside Zimbabwe are utilizing.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that. Engineer Kaseki, I want to come back to you. I mean, there are so many other aspects of technology that we're talking about here, software development, apps, and all those sort of things. From a commercial perspective, I'm sure app developers will be keen to develop those apps, commercialize them, and sell them. Is the ministry doing anything to try and also develop its own apps, or encourage app developers to come up with some of these apps? Because I would imagine if I want to come up with an app, I also require a lot of information. Perhaps that is housed or held in the ministry. Are you encouraging that? Are you working with app developers so that they can bring more apps that may make technology applicable, easier, and accessible?
Yes, sir. If you notice that recently the Permanent Secretary launched 3 apps, one for input distribution, the other for monitoring the Pumbuza, and the other one. These apps were developed both internally as well as using external partners with the assistance of development partners like Zakis. The ministry encourages anyone with an idea that can help modernize our agriculture to come forward and present that idea so that it can be used for the benefit of the whole country. And in this regard, we have a completely open door policy that anyone with the ideas about how we can modernize our agriculture, how we can improve the efficiency of our agricultural processes, is welcome to come to the ministry, talk to me, talk to the permanent secretary, or even go to the minister with their idea, and we can look at how it can be developed. We currently have a small team of ICT professionals, so they give guidance to the developers. They develop what we call a statement of user requirements for the developers to work. The developers don't necessarily have to be inside the ministry, but they can be outside the ministry, but they develop applications that have got a footprint that covers all farmers. A good example is the platform for extension services a person wants master farmer training that is being done online. We did an application for that, and if anyone who wants to do master farmer training only has to access the website and register themselves and go through the training processes, get training. After the training, they get a certificate issued to them through an online, a 100% online process. And this is a kind of collaboration for application development that the ministry is currently engaged in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for that. I suppose some of the challenges that, the issues around that, something being asked by one of the people following us via LinkedIn is saying, is government doing more to make internet access more accessible in rural areas? I think obviously there is a push. Certainly what I'm aware of is through the Universal Services Fund. I think, the government tries to step into areas where some of these mobile networks have not set up base stations to make it accessible in those areas. I don't know if that's something you'd want to quickly chip in, Engineer Kaseke, in terms of how much of a limitation that is in rolling out these programs.
One of our partners that we are working with for the development of access to information in the rural areas is Potras. And Potras have come in very, very handy in that where we have access issues pertaining to network availability and other issues. They've come in to assist and put in infrastructure. All we need to do sometimes is identify the area area of need, and we engage them and they assist. But also, recently, the Ministry of ICT has developed community information centers that are dotted throughout the country. These are connected places where people can connect and have access to information. On top of that, each domain in the rural area has been equipped with an iPad or a Samsung pad, which has got data and information which links to the head office website as well as to the servers for information on training and weather data and things like that. So in terms of making sure that people have got access to information and can access online services, the government the Ministry of Agriculture is working hand in glove with the Ministry of ICT as well as with the Potras to ensure that these issues are addressed. Of course, it's a process, it doesn't take one day, but efforts are being made to ensure that this problem is solved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I want to get some parting shots and parting messages from all our panelists. I know that earlier, Dr. Divine Simbin Kula made mention that, let's hope the government blueprint is not a blueprint that just remains and gathers dust on the shelves, but it's a blueprint that is actually executed. You did talk about the fact that all farmers must embrace technology because it is the way forward. Any other parting shots or message that you might have to any listeners or app developers, farmers who are following this discussion as we hit to wrap up?
All right. My parting shot is to farmers. I want all farmers who are listening to understand that this Agritech technology is not for the rich, it's not for the for the farmers with the big farms only. It is for everyone. And in terms of government policy, all is now the leasing company. The leasing company owned by AFC, where technologies can be housed and people access them at a lower cost through leasing. Even if you don't have money at that time, but you still want to use the technology, you can enter into a loan agreement through with the AFC for you to access the technologies now, so that you enhance your production process and increase your yield and then pay later when you harvest. So farmers must access and make use of these facilities for the benefit of the country and for food security and for our march towards Vision 2030. Thank you.
Implementation of the blueprint. What are some of the key milestones? By when? You know, where are we now? We've launched it. What next? What are the tangibles?
All right. We've launched the blueprint. We have identified land where we are going to showcase training for the farmers to be trained how to implement some of the technologies, and this is coming in the first quarter of 2022.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the implementation of the blueprint is underway, and as you might understand, this blueprint was developed in partnership with Smart Africa, and the whole African continent is going to come and see the implementation of Agritech in Zimbabwe. In their own countries. So Zimbabwe will take a flagship leading position to ensure that it actually implements this blueprint, and for the benefit of Africa to learn from us so that Agritech is applied continentally. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. Dr. Divine Simbin Kula, any final words before we wrap up?
Yes, Farai. For me, I think I'll emphasize the need for a collaborative approach by all stakeholders if we are to gain traction or to build a better progress in terms of Agritech. Government has got a great part to play, in particular, obviously, the issue on policy on less import duties on some of the technologies or tools that are used. Already we are seeing the recent announcement on a $50, I think there's a $50 duty on the handsets that are imported. Already that's a setback for what we are trying to achieve and for what this blueprint is talking to. So already there is a disjointment in terms of what Minister of Agriculture or Minister of ICT and the Minister of Finance is trying to achieve. So there's need for alignment of government policy to ensure that what we are talking about here is going to come to pass. Then, of course, other collaborative approaches that are required besides government is financial institutions. Okay, FCB being one of our financial institutions, I'm sure they are playing their part already. Just this webinar itself is also, part of what they are doing to play a great role in ensuring that Agritech goes out to people. Development partners, I think they are ready to be working. I know the gentleman, Mr. Makaseko, was talking about this organization. I think it's called, which is already working on technology in agriculture. Farmers themselves, obviously, they need awareness and they need to be sensitized through the local authorities, through the local Agritech, the extension workers. And certainly when we talk about drones, I'm aware, I don't know whether this has changed, but I know that it has not changed. There should be less cumbersome regulations in terms of licensing, even those drones. It's a bit cumbersome. The regulations are a bit very heavy. The average person cannot do it. So really, we will not achieve much if we continue on the path that we have taken as policymakers, in particular policymakers, because I've got a much bigger bone to chew with policymakers than the other stakeholders. That's for sure.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Divine Lukula, for that. And we hope that, we'll continue engaging the policymakers through platforms like this and collaboration, as you said. Graham Webb, anything else you'd like to chip in before we wrap up this discussion?
Sure. Yeah, I would certainly embrace farmers to get involved, to embrace it, technology, and forming strategic partnerships. What Dr. just mentioned about First Capital, I just want to mention that when we started this venture, I went around to every single commercial bank and borrowing institution in Zimbabwe. First Capital was the only bank that came to us and said, right, we are prepared to get involved. And we're prepared to back you in agriculture on a long-term investment. I think that's very important and something certainly that hasn't been highlighted. And again, I'll say it, I went to every institution. In Zimbabwe, we're blessed with so many things. So we've got a wonderful climate. We really have. And we can do everything that South Africa can do. I'm going to turn Centenary into the new Zanin. We're going to be, this is my vision. We want to be, that's where we want to be. We can compete with them. We really, really can. But it's important that farmers go and form strategic partnerships with the right people. And for us, First Capital has been one of the only banks out there that has been willing to come on us on our journey and is prepared to take the punt in us on a long-term investment. I want to say that word again, on a long-term investment. There's lots of money out there that's on short-term, 12 months, maybe 24, but First Capital is willing to take this gamble with us. It's not a gamble, it's a sure thing. And I just want to encourage people, technology, and look to forming the right strategic partnership. Thank you, and thank you to everybody else on the panel.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Graham. Very last, well, before we get to Butemwa, Jeremiah, we've obviously spoken quite a bit about drones. But beyond that, I think any final message that you may have in terms of harnessing and taking advantage of technology in agriculture?
No, thank you very much, Farai. In my conclusion, I would think that I want to address three demographics that to ensure that the application and adoption of this technology is enhanced. Number one, I want to encourage every farmer to ensure that they are part of a community that can be reached as far as these technologies are shared. If one is to work on his or her own, then it may be difficult for some of this information to filter down to them. So that's an encouragement. And secondly, because of these technology advancements, I want to encourage the universities, the colleges, and even students to realign their thinking, because maybe some of the modules being taught in universities are not aligned to the current developments. So I want to encourage them to work with the industry so that at least they're aware of the technology trends, to ensure that they refocus, realign even their modules and so forth. And for the students, to ensure that in areas of interest, I think agriculture tech is a very big area. So I think there's need to be that focus as well. And lastly, of course, the government issues to do with support. We can't overemphasize that, and issues to do with regulations as well. So I think I can say those are my parting words. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I think a very, very important point you raised there about tertiary institutions and coming up with study areas that are relevant to what's happening now. So I think very, very, very important, very insightful. And just, I think, young people, I mean, obviously we've spoken a lot about this high level, very, sophisticated sort of tech. But I remember interviewing some very young guys who are doing hydroponics farming. And some of the solutions that they have are simple things on your smartphone where you can monitor the temperature in your greenhouse. You can remotely from your smartphone release the different chemicals and fertilizers when you want them to be released at whatever time of the day. Monitor how much water is flowing through the piping systems and all that, all from your smartphone, and you don't have to be there. So it's not very expensive drones, but it's those sort of solutions, even in the palm of your hand, that are being sought after, and that I think universities and tertiary institutions should be looking to develop and come up with. So thank you so much for that, Mr. Jeremiah Msabayana. Very lastly, let me hand over to Butemwa, just to hear any final words from First Capital Bank, and I suppose going forward, what else we can expect from the bank institution, specifically in terms of agriculture and agricultural technology?
Thanks, Farai. It's to say 2022 is going to be an exciting year for us. We are going to be relaunching our SME proposition, which will have an agri element to it, a small scale agricultural element to it. We've got plans in place at our Mount Pleasant office to put in place a learning center. We have a fantastic team there, Mark, Joseph, and Fadzai, who are always present. So we'd encourage all the participants on this call to pay them a visit and to talk about your projects and to see where we can help. But I think one of the major observations that we've made, and to some extent, it speaks to Jeremiah's point, is that education is everything. A lot of people go into this agri thing blind, and we really feel like we have a role, considering that we've got the expertise, years of expertise as an institution where we can help. So we are open to having conversations. We're open to sharing our experiences. And if the metrics are right, we're open to giving you some of our balance sheets, so our clients can grow. So I think 2022 is going to be a very exciting year. I mean, generally, Zimbabwe is growing. We have a lot of teething issues, and I get it. Like there's a lot of inefficiency, but for the most part, what we are seeing is growth, and we've all got a role to play to ensure that it becomes sustainable. I just wanted to thank the engineer for being on, Mr. Kaseke. I mean, I know he's got a very busy schedule in his role. I've had a couple of meetings with him, and the demands on his time are incredible and nothing like any of us can imagine. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for being part of this conversation and for giving us your perspective on where the Ministry of Agriculture, where the state and the executive sits in terms of policy. I wanted to thank our panelists, Dr. Divine, Jeremiah, and Graham. We really appreciate you for being on the line and for sharing your experiences with those that are listening in. Farai, thank you very much for running a very robust conversation. I think we've all learned a lot. And most importantly, it's holiday season. The 4th or 5th wave, I've lost count, is back. Please look after yourselves, mask up, sanitize, and to everyone, please have a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays and a fantastic New Year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mutema, for that conclusion. And indeed, as you quite rightly say, holiday season, let's make the most of it. I like the point you raised there. A lot of people go into this agri thing blind. I think there's also a lot of, the bandwagon effect. We all hear that, Dr. Ndukula is doing very well with livestock. I also want to do it. But the opportunity, I think, from the discussion we've had here is that there are tools to help you. There is data, there is research-based, evidence-based ways in which you can actually do this scientifically using the tech that is available to be more efficient, to learn faster, and to do better. So let's all take advantage of that. Once again, thank you to everyone who's joined us via LinkedIn. It's been a pleasure to have you. We look forward to another one. First Capital Bank has said this is not the last one. So please stay tuned and look out for many, many more. Thank you so much.